Well, as we've been reporting, at least 6 people have been killed in protest-related violence in Pakistan's capital, where supporters of jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan have breached a lockdown. Security forces have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at demonstrators who've broken through a ring of shipping containers around Islamabad. Maleeha Lodhi is Pakistan's former ambassador to the US and the UK, and she joins me now from Islamabad. Maleeha, thank you so much for your time today. We just spoke to a reporter who was close to the protest site, and we heard shots being fired. We can't establish whether they were rubber bullets or live rounds, but how dangerous is the situation now that protesters have broken through the barricades?
Well, it's a very precarious situation, undoubtedly. Even from my home, which is in central Islamabad, I can hear the sound of tear gas shells being fired. And I understand that even rubber bullets are now being used. The protesters, I think, are defiant. They are also resolute. These are die-hard supporters of Imran Khan, and they're there to protest on behalf of their leader. So I think, the time for a political resolution, which is what the situation really needs, seems to have passed. And that makes the moment even more dangerous.
So if that time has passed, how far do you think the PTI, Imran Khan's supporters are willing to go? So how do you see today developing further as the day goes on?
Well, it's hard to predict what their strategy might be, but their goal was to reach what is called D-Chalk, which is a roundabout which faces all the key government buildings and in fact leads the way onto what is called Constitution Avenue, which has the Prime Minister's office, Parliament, and all the other buildings. So I think their goal was to reach there and then to mount and stage a sit-in for as long as it takes, because their demand is obviously the release of Imran Khan. Now, a great deal depends on how the government and security forces choose to respond, because if there is bloodshed on the streets of the capital, then I'm afraid the situation is going to go to a point of no return. Then something else would have to happen to take the situation back to normal, as it were.
And could that situation be that the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and his government yield to some of the demands, at least, of the protesters?
Well, it certainly can't be ruled out. At this point, it can't be ruled in either. But I think if the demonstrators prove to be resilient and can sustain their protests and are not dispersed, because don't forget, security forces are out there in full force. The army has been deployed, and Pakistan's history shows that whenever the army is deployed in aid of civil power, which is what it's called, then it's usually a prelude for political change.
Yes, on that point, you talk about, the military deployment. Can we see that the military leadership getting involved fairly soon?
Well, it's already involved. The fact that they back this government, the fact that they obviously approve of the actions that this government has been taking. So they're already involved. But I think they would have to see the need to bring about a peaceful resolution of this crisis, because this crisis can spread. It can also engulf other cities as PTI protesters watch what is happening to their colleagues, as it were, fellow supporters in the capital. So it's possible it doesn't remain confined to Islamabad. So I think you're right. The army leadership has to take a decision.
What would a peaceful resolution look like to you? Because seeing what we have seen today, hearing the gunshots in the background in Islamabad, that does not seem to be happening at any point or anytime soon.
Well, I think the political solution was always, it should have been, this issue should have been resolved much earlier, because I think the kind of repression that has been used against Khan's party, the kind of frivolous court cases that have been brought against its leaders, the way their homes have been raided, all of this has to be stopped. An assurance has to be given to the PTI leadership that no more repression. Repression never works. It works up to a point and then it's all over. So I think ultimately, the protesters want the release of Khan. Now, it's not clear whether that can happen, But certainly, all the cases against Khan are bailable. He gets bail from one court on a case, and then he's rearrested on another case, which is trumped up. So I think the time has come for all parties, I mean, PTI included, to step back and to see how they can return the country to political stability, to political peace. And the only way is some kind of an understanding that is achieved between the government, the opposition, and of course the army, backing such an agreement.
So you believe that the charges and convictions against Imran Khan are politically motivated?
Well, it's not for me to say whether they are, but the courts seem to throw out these cases whenever they hear them. And then, as I said before, a new case is filed against him. And none of these cases are, they're all bailable. So I think the big question is, why is he still detained if they are bailable? I mean, he's not being accused of terrorism. He's not been accused of murder, after all. He's been accused of corruption, yes, misuse of power. Now, those cases do not require him to remain jailed. So I think that's what's made his supporters very angry. And angry supporters are desperate supporters. So, I mean, some of the violence that they have directed at security forces has to be condemned. There's no question in my mind about that. But I think one also has to understand that if you use large doses of repression, then that is met by very angry people.
And also, you've served as Pakistan's ambassador to the US, the UK, and permanent representative to the UN. How do you think the international community is viewing what's been happening, especially in this past week leading up to today?
Well, their response would be no different from the reaction of the people of Pakistan, which is great concern about Pakistan's political stability, especially at a time when the economy remains very fragile, and when the cost of living remains very high. So I think the international community would be very concerned.
And can I finally ask you, Maleeha, in a situation like this, how do residents like yourselves and residents across Islamabad and the suburbs are feeling at the moment when a political protest of this magnitude, and it's happened numerous times before, how do you feel when this happens so close to home? You did mention that you could hear the tear gas being fired.
Well, obviously, citizens like me in the capital are in a lockdown mode. We can't leave our homes because it's so dangerous, and plus the roads are all blocked. So I think our concern is for the situation to ease, for the tensions to go down, for a political solution to be found so that Pakistan can return to political stability. I think every citizen of Pakistan today would want this crisis to end peacefully and in a manner that is sustained and on a just and fair basis.
Okay, Maleeha Lodhi, really grateful for your time today, and do stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.